Alright, let's talk about something big. And by big, I mean a field in the middle of nowhere, Alaska, filled with what looks like a forest of giant metallic Christmas trees. This, ladies and gentlemen, is HAARP. And depending on who you ask, it's either a boring science project for radio nerds, or it's a super weapon capable of controlling the weather, triggering earthquakes, and possibly even making you inexplicably crave pineapple on pizza. It's the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, a name so spectacularly dull it almost has to be hiding something sinister, right? Like calling a doomsday device Brenda. For decades, this facility has been the star of some of the internet's wildest conspiracy theories, a perfect bogeyman for our uncertain times. So how did a bunch of antennas in a place most famous for moose and freezing temperatures become the villain in a James Bond movie that was never made? It's a classic recipe. You take one part secretive, government-funded project, add a dash of confusing high-level science, sprinkle in some spooky-looking hardware, and then let it simmer on the low heat of the early internet. So what is HAARP actually doing up there in the Alaskan tundra? Well, prepare to be slightly underwhelmed. In the simplest terms, HAARP is a giant radio transmitter. Think of it as the world's most powerful public radio station, but instead of playing calming jazz or yet another pledge drive, it beams radio waves straight up into the sky. Specifically, it targets a part of the upper atmosphere called the ionosphere. This is a layer buzzing with electrically charged particles starting about 50 miles above our heads. It's the same part of the atmosphere that naturally creates the beautiful northern lights. It's essentially a giant atmospheric laboratory. The actual purpose of all this is to study that very ionosphere. Scientists use HAARP to temporarily excite or heat a tiny focused patch of this layer. And when I say heat, we're not talking about boiling the sky. The effect is minuscule, temporary, and completely localized. It's like using a magnifying glass to warm up a single grain of sand on an entire beach. By doing this, they can observe how that part of the atmosphere reacts. This helps them understand things that are crucial for our modern world, how to improve radio communications, make GPS more reliable, and figure out how solar flares might mess with our satellites and power grids. In 2015, the facility transferred to the University of Alaska Fairbanks. They even have open house days. Now for the fun part, the main course. Conspiracy theories about HAARP are not one idea. Undisputed king weather control. Claim heating the ionosphere. Manipulate the jet stream. Create or steer hurricanes, floods, droughts. Next, mind control. Low-frequency waves bounced off the ionosphere, beamed down to influence thought and emotion, broadcasting subliminal messages. Desert, earthquake generation. HAARP's beams directed down, penetrate the Earth's crust and trigger vibrations along fault lines, cause earthquakes on demand. Someone connected the dots to Gakona, an act of nature turned act of war. Real tech given godlike powers, a handful of people pulling planetary strings. Nobody makes a movie called Slightly More Accurate Satellite Navigation. So why? Why do these wild, scientifically impossible ideas stick? Why do they feel so plausible to so many people? Well, a big part of it is the classic secret government project trope. For most of its life, HAARP was funded by the military and operated with a degree of secrecy. The lack of clear, simple information created a vacuum eagerly filled by speculation. Then there's the visual element. The HAARP facility looks intimidating, in a remote, desolate landscape. When it operates, it can create faint, shimmering lights in the sky, a phenomenon known as airglow. The human brain is hardwired to find patterns and agency, even where none exists. We want explanations for terrible things. When catastrophic events happen, chaos is terrifying, and the idea of a clear enemy is comforting. A conspiracy theory provides a clear enemy, a straightforward narrative, reassuring in a world that feels out of control. Believing in HAARP as a superweapon isn't just about scientific literacy, it's about a deep human need for certainty. The world is a complicated and often frightening place. These theories offer simple answers to complex questions. Blaming a secret sky laser is easier than grappling with messy realities like climate change, plate tectonics, and human psychology. Okay, let's bring this back down to Earth. It's time to take a pin to these big, scary, conspiracy-filled balloons. First, the weather control idea. The amount of energy HAARP directs into the ionosphere is ridiculously small compared to the energy in our weather systems. A single thunderstorm contains thousands of times more energy than HAARP could ever produce. Claiming HAARP can steer a hurricane is like trying to change the direction of a charging rhino by blowing on it. Scientists who actually study weather look at HAARP's power output and just laugh. The radio waves HAARP uses are non-ionizing. They don't have enough energy to damage human cells or DNA. You get exposed to far more powerful radio waves every day from the sun, your local radio stations, and your own cell phone. The idea that these waves could be precisely focused to influence a human brain from hundreds of miles away is pure science fiction. It would be like trying to perform brain surgery from space using a garden hose. The signal would be too weak and diffuse. It wouldn't even be detectable, let alone capable of making you vote a certain way. The energy required to trigger an earthquake by vibrating tectonic plates is monumental, far beyond anything a radio array could generate. The 2011 Japan earthquake released the energy of hundreds of millions of atomic bombs. HAARP's total hourly output wouldn't even register. Suggesting it could cause earthquakes is like saying you could start a volcanic eruption by stomping your foot really hard. It leaves us with a fascinating piece of scientific equipment and a collection of very entertaining but ultimately baseless stories. The lesson here isn't that HAARP is boring. The lesson is that we should always be curious but also critical. It's good to question powerful institutions, but follow those questions with research, listen to experts, and check the facts. The universe is already full of incredible, mind-boggling wonders. We don't need to invent superweapons in Alaska to make it interesting. And the real science is often more amazing than the fiction. If something sounds wild, ask for evidence. Read original research. Check multiple sources. Question institutions when needed. Demand transparency, but don't substitute fear for facts. Be curious and be critical. Thanks for coming to the Conspiracy Buffet. See you next time. If you liked this, subscribe for more curious debunks and weird history. Sources in the description. Stay curious.